Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bleav in Bingo podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Solomon Wilcots, and today we have a very special guest. That's right. He is the Cincinnati Bengals reporter for The Athletic. He covers the Bengals on the daily, cranking out some of the best news, some of the best information about the Cincinnati Bengals every single day. Paul Dehner Jr. Paul, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing great, Solly. How are you doing?
Doing great. Hey, I was reading your articles this morning and a lot of information right now when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, there are several of us and only a few. I think I'm in the small minority that still feels like there's a slither of chance to get into the playoffs. That may have evaporated after the Bengals 34-39 loss in Buffalo on Sunday. So I want to go back and kind of talk about that game. First of all, the fact that we squandered a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, there was a sense that we were in control of that game until two fourth-quarter interceptions. These are rarely seen mistakes by Joe Burrow. How do we sort of internalize this? What are the coaches saying, and what is Joe Burrow saying about those pivotal moments within that game?
I mean, there was a lot of praising Christian Benford for the play that he was able to make. And, you know, I think it was kind of a unique confluence of events in terms of you hadn't seen. Jamar Chase said after the game, I mean, that's the only time they brought a corner from my side like that all game. It's something in that situation you don't really see. You also don't really see a corner coming in, going to the air after a ball, being able to catch it. There was just a lot of stuff that Zach Taylor sort of referred to as rare and unique for that to be the result of that play call, one where Burrow kind of sees the corner peeking and sees a chance to go get the ball to Jamar Chase in space on the other side of him, which is usually a good idea, but this one just obviously backfired in epic fashion. And I think there's for me, I think there's a sense of it exposes how they ask Joe and this offense to be perfect to make up for what they have on the other side of the ball, where you can't possibly make a mistake like this. And granted, there was another one that came on his next throw after that with another interception, but there's no margin for error. That you know, 34 points is not enough. And you can't give up the pick six. You can't put your defense in a bad spot because they're just in the fourth quarter of games all year, not able to get stops. You said, hey, what a 10-point lead given up in the fourth quarter. You just don't see this, except we just saw it last month against the Jets. This is the same thing that's happened multiple times. This team has not been able to get a stop all year in the fourth quarter to go win a game. They have handed them opportunity after opportunity to do so, and they've just never been able to do it. And this was the latest example.
How are you keeping track of this? Because I know I am. The Bengals 6 times this season already, and the season is not over yet, Paul, but already 6 times this season, the Cincinnati Bengals have scored 30 or more points. They've lost half of those games. They're 3-3. Since the start of last season, they've had 14 games where they've scored 30 or more points, and they've won half. So we're batting 50% when we score 30 or more points. There should be a much higher ratio, which means the defense has got a hold of their end of it. Chase Brown was frustrated earlier in the season when he said something, all hell broke loose. Something needs to be said, though. And at some point, I think, not that you're getting so angry that it's destructive. Sometimes those internal confrontational discussions, particularly amongst the players, can lead to a higher level of accountability, right?
I would think so. I'll do your stat one better because I've been tracking this for a while now.
There you go.
I put the number at 33 because we've seen them cross that 7 times since the start of last year. 33 points or more. The rest of the NFL since the start of last year, when a team scores 33 points or more, 136, 10-2 is their record. The Bengals are 4-7. 4-7 when you score 33. I asked Joe
the
Burrow,
Bengals are 7. They represent 7 of those 10 losses.
No, I'm not. That's the rest of the NFL.
Oh, that's the rest of the NFL.
The whole NFL would have 17. You take the Bengals out of it.
Yeah.
And there's the rest of the other 31 teams only have 10 losses in those situations. The Bengals have 7.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I asked Joe Burrow after the game, kind of how he handles having to go through so many of these games where 34 isn't enough.
There you go.
And I was a little surprised by his answer. You know, he kind of said, you know, I've kind of learned to deal with it, and I've found perspective in going out there, and I enjoy having fun and putting on a show, and being out for the last 2 months has taught me a lot of things about appreciation for playing the game. And I appreciated his perspective and kind of viewing it through a very human sense of enjoying the game after having that taken away from him. But there was a part of me, Solly, and you've been around here for a while, that wanted to say, is this man Bengalized? Like, did they take the edge off of him?
Yeah.
I'm not going there. I'm not saying that. But it was a thought when you saw it of like, man, this isn't the same. And he's admitting I don't feel and have that same anger maybe that I had about it in the past, because I found this perspective. That's great, but it was a different reaction to what have been very frustrating defeats that we've seen him have to deal with over the last couple of years.
So I want to add some perspective here, because I had the chance to cover Peyton Manning and Tom Brady throughout their entire careers. But let's take the Peyton Manning perspective. Like Joe, he went first overall. There's a difference, right? Because you go to a team that's usually not that great, that's been down. Now you're expected to rise them up to championship level, and it takes time when you're the first overall pick and joining that team. That's what happened with Peyton in '98. And so it took about 7 or 8 years before they really had a breakthrough. They were winning. They were going to the playoffs, but, you know, it took a while to break through the Patriots, right? Because they were in the same division, certainly the same conference, even after realignment. And you know, he would have these critical interceptions that maybe didn't allow them to advance one year, or maybe critical game they would lose. And I would ask him, I said, how do you rationalize the mistakes when they happen at a critical moment? Or when do you decide that you could be conservative, or when do you really risk it? And he said, you know, when our defense is playing really well, I feel like I don't have to try to force the ball into certain situations. Because I know if we punt, I'm going to get the ball back and the scoreboard won't change. In other words, he said, but in those cases where our defenses weren't playing well, I felt like I had to risk it. He said, I felt a lot of pressure every single possession to score, because if we did it and we punt the ball to the other team, if I don't convert this third or fourth down and I have to punt it to them, by the time we get the ball back, the scoreboard's going to be changed. It's going to be out of control. Now we're chasing points, and now we're behind on the scoreboard. So think about that. Joe Burrow is going through some of the same rationalizations. And I will say this, he's in his 6th season. Peyton didn't get to that Super Bowl and win it until maybe his 7th or 8th season. So I just want everybody to understand. And he started to rationalize some things in a way that allowed him to persevere through some really tough and difficult times. You know how many times they lost to the Patriots before he actually got there? So I think that's what you're hearing from Joe as well. Not a concession. I don't think he's making a concession, but I do think he's some rationalization to be able to cope with some of the things that are outside of his control, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I do think the injuries are a part of that conversation.
Yes, exactly.
I just think you're seeing a guy that most people did not expect to even be playing in this game, much less the week before against the Ravens on Thanksgiving, and has had a lot of time to think about how much he loves just being out there, and doesn't have to be so consumed by the fact that, you know, the defense can't stop anybody. So what? I'm enjoying going out there and playing football because I really appreciate it. And I think that's probably maybe even a bigger portion of it than being beaten down by what's happened here over the last couple of years. But I don't think the guy stopped wanting to win. No. I think he's just started having to rationalize more and understand what it feels like and find his own coping mechanisms with what it feels like and how you deal with losing 39-34, because he's had to do it so many times.
See, I think you just answered my other question. I was getting ready to ask you, What about the fire that burns in him in terms of him as a competitor? That's what I'm seeing. He came out to compete against Josh Allen, who I think a lot of us feel like Josh has his MVP trophy. That trophy should have gone to Joe Burrow maybe 1 year ago. There's no doubt about it. I think Joe played the best quarterback of anybody in the league 1 year ago. But he went to Buffalo to compete. He went to Buffalo to win. This is very clear. And I think he does it for a number of different reasons. He likes competing against the guys on the other side. But I think for his guys, I think he felt responsible for Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins. He didn't want their season to become a waste, right? He wants them to get the most out of their careers, and he knows that that can only be done when he's out there playing. Am I right?
Yeah, well, yes, I think so. I think that, what Joe Flacco came in and did was really cool, and I think there's an appreciation for seeing Jamar have the success that he did, and I think he wants them all to go out there and go do something special together. But your perspective does change as you go and endure these years like this, which, like, let's just go have fun together, man. Like, I know it's an uphill battle. I know that us making the playoffs. Let's just go. Let's do our best. Let's put whatever we can. Let's go put on a show in the snow in Buffalo and see where it falls. And I think a resignation that it's a long shot, but I'm going to come back and we're just going to go have some fun and see what happens is also a part of, I think, what you're hearing from Joe. It might sound a lot different in week 5 of next year if they're 1-4 or 2-3 or something. It might have a little different tone than understanding that this was already a long shot.
Paul, what's your sense of what some of the bigger discussions at the highest level of this organization is? Because I think it's clear that what transpired last year was not a Lou Anarumo problem, right? I think that's become
I think we see that now.
Clear.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big elephant in the room.
Yeah.
We just need to admit it. And I think that I don't even think we even see this, or they shouldn't anyway, as an Al Golden problem. Like, this is much more granular. In other words, some of the players that have been picked and that were counted upon, particularly on the defensive side with high first, second, third round picks, it just has not materialized. And so what's the sense that they're beginning to embrace that realism or that fact? And what are they prepared to begin to do about it as we get closer to the offseason?
Yeah, it's a really interesting discussion. And I think, I don't know that we know that their thoughts are totally fully formed on that yet. I think that they're still hoping to see a month where it builds on really the last month that's shown some signs of hope. I mean, it was, you talk about hopeless place. It was a desert of hope the first half of the season. The only people we were comparing them to was like the Dayton Triangles from the 30s and the Takawanda Cardex from 1921. It was historically bad. We've never seen anything like this in the modern NFL. The last month, we've seen, okay, there's a goal line stand here. There's a stop. A couple of young players are starting to come along a little bit. There's a sense that something's happening. They go to Baltimore. They get some turnovers. You see some energy, some passion from players that, quite frankly, hadn't had enough of that over the course of the season. That was building some hope. They weren't missing as many tackles, which, the bar was low. But they weren't missing as many tackles as they had been. So there was this sense of that. And I think there was some of that in Buffalo. It's an 18. They allowed 18 points midway through the fourth quarter to Josh Allen, and they were getting them into fourth downs. They convert 3 of the 4. And you drop an interception here, you drop an interception there, 3rd and 15. They weren't even getting them into those spots earlier this year. And here you had them in those spots. You were doing a good job of getting into the spots that you live to play for. You set yourself up for 4th downs, 3rd and longs, all of these things. They just couldn't make the play. They couldn't get the stop. That is still progress. What they're looking for now is they need another month that has the same amount of progress that they feel like they saw, because you can't rebuild in one offseason completely. It's impossible.
That's right.
They need a few more pieces that they can feel like they see enough where they don't have to go kick that person out the door. There's going to be a bunch of that. I mean, they need players at every level to come in and play a starting level NFL reliable position. I mean, they need a safety, they need a linebacker, they need more pass rush, they need a blue chip draft pick, all on the defensive side of the ball, which they can do. And I think there's recognition that they don't really need much on offense. Offense is legitimately set. Guys are signed. The picks are here. The line's in place. They don't need to worry about losing guys in free agency or having to do massive extensions like Jamar and T. They can put all of their time, effort, money,
on the
draft capital into defense. That said, you even with that, you can't do it all in one offseason. So I think they're hoping that they can find a few more pieces and then sit in front of it all and say, how much do we have to go in replace? Do we still believe Al Golden and, by correlation, Zach Taylor are the two people to do that? And are we willing to give that another year and build on? They've talked a lot about living through the growing pains to come out the other side. Do we still believe in that? I think those are a little bit more big picture questions that they're searching for answers for and don't completely feel like they have it yet.
All right, help us out here because I'm watching the game on Sunday. As much as I did not want him to come out of the game, I was concerned about the health of Tee Higgins, who hit his head on the back of the ground, back of his head, hit the ground very hard. He came back in, made another catch, but you could tell he was fighting the ball a little bit. I don't know how he made that one-hand touchdown grab in the condition that he was in, but it shows you his competitiveness. But I was concerned about him because he was flinching at it. He was fighting the ball, and I felt like his vision had been somewhat impaired, and he was holding his head repeatedly. How is it? What did the team say? How did it come to the point where they continue to put him back in the game when most of us could see that there was something going on here?
They relied on the independent neurologist, and I think the reason these guardrails are in place is for just that. You can't put any of this in the hands of anybody associated with the team in these competitive moments because the player is going to want to go play. The coaches and the staff, of course, want to see their guy go play.
That's right.
The bottom line is with these concussions, you have to have these guardrails in place. Go in the tent, have somebody independent. The red hat goes in there. They give you a baseline test and say whether you have a concussion or not. They judge the symptoms, and all you can do is go off of that. And that's all the Bengals did. In both of those situations, he went in there, showed no symptoms, passed the baseline tests. And so they said, T can go play. He said, I can go play. He goes out there and plays again. And I think that's what it was. And then after the game, I guess, and then also on Monday, reported the symptoms, and he's back in the protocol now. The NFL and the NFLPA issue a joint statement stating everything was done properly with the independent neurologist, and they followed all of the proper protocols. No one, we saw earlier this year, Brian Daboll was like storming into the blue tent, like get him out there. None of that was going on. This was 100%. Tell us what the neurologist says.
Yes.
And if the neurologist that's to me, Solly, that's all you can do.
You
can't be making my, unscientific judgment calls here. You have to put it in that person's hands. Or else you do end up in a whole different place. And they did that. He got cleared and he played. And now he reported symptoms later and ends up back in the protocol. I don't know I'm curious how you would react. This wasn't something that you dealt with when you were a player in terms of what we know now.
No, they didn't know. They didn't want to know.
Right?
They push
you're
you.
Good.
You're good. Push you out there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm not built like this. I could never do any of what these guys do, knowing the risks associated with concussions. I don't know how they do it. It's very, very scary for me to see what these guys put themselves through. But I know that you're built differently. You're willing to accept these consequences and these risk factors. These guys take this into their hands knowing that. But that's scary stuff for me. But and so the line between player wanting to play and all of that stuff, it's scary. I would be very quick to want to shut my season down if I were Tee Higgins, but I don't know if he feels that way.
Yeah. And I think it may not now may not be up to him,
Right.
because now a lot of people are going to be weighing in, and they're going to make sure those symptoms are gone. He already missed one game, and now as soon as he comes back, he hits, and it was legit. He hit the back of his head on the ground. So this is not something that's imaginary. It's real. I remember coming off the field one time, and Dick LeBeau asked me, "What happened?" I said, "I don't know. What happened?" As if like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you were supposed to be in the deep third. Turns out, Paul, I had given up a touchdown. I didn't even come close to getting to my area. And I didn't even know what happened. I just went and sat down on the bench. I continued to play. And it wasn't until the next day, Monday, when we were all reviewing the tape, I'm watching this. I'm like, oh my good. And I didn't want to tell anyone, but I didn't even remember the play that I was watching. I didn't remember it. So those moments, you can get several players, obviously, to tell you stuff like that and how it materialized. And now our league is so much better when it comes to managing those moments. I would have been pointed out, I would have been in the blue tent. They would have been like, we can't have him giving up more touchdowns, so let's get him out of there. Hey, look, I want to ask you about what's taking place, the decision. First of all, why the suspension of Jermaine Burton? And then the very next day on Monday, he's released and waived from the football team. How did it come to this? And just kind of fill us in on that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it was a compounding of blown chances and irreparable damage in terms of trust with the organization. I think after last year, the leash was very short. They made that clear. They were willing to give him another chance and just be, okay, a rookie year, immature, a guy who they're trying to help. And I think they legitimately were trying to help Jermaine Burton, like not just the organization. I mean, the players, you hear players talking about trying to help Jamar, T. We want to help Jermaine, help him be better about showing up on time, taking it seriously, knowing your playbook, doing all the right things on and off the field. And there was hope for that in the offseason, but it just never materialized. It turned in a lot of the same issues. And every time they gave him even the smallest bit of opportunity over the course of different points this year, he would drop the ball on it, whether it was not knowing what was going on, not showing up. All of that stuff just continued over the course of this year. And I think in recent weeks, he had this very mysterious ankle injury in a walkthrough right before they were supposed to go to Baltimore, and he doesn't make the trip there. You have this not making the trip to this game for whatever reasons, and the suspension associated with that. It just feels like they finally came to terms of, this is just too much. We're never going to trust this guy here. We hope that he can go find a change of scenery that maybe allows a new trust to be built somewhere else, but it's just not going to happen here. And it was time to move on. They're more patient than me. Yeah. I don't know that I would have made it to week 14 with everything that went down with Jermaine Burton, but I understand how his talent can be tantalizing because if you could get it right, he could go out there and play. But this isn't the type of thing you build your culture and your team around. And you could sense lately the players had turned with they don't want to see him get a chance because you can't go rewarding that when there's plenty of other guys that have been doing the right thing that deserve more opportunity.
That's right. And to continue, I mean, think about the other guys and Andre Yoshivas and the way that he works hard and shows up and very accountable and productive in games. And then you've got Charlie Jones, who's probably the fifth receiver behind Mitchell Tinsley. But Jones is so good on special teams. We love him. And Mitchell Tinsley is a promising young player who does show up on time, who is putting in the work, who is developing, and could potentially be a more productive player on a consistent basis. So you can't overlook what their contributions have been in the hard work just to reward one other guy who's not towing the same line. Your thoughts on Trey Hendrickson having surgery for the core muscle injury and potentially shutting it down for the rest of the season? Have we seen the last of him in a Bengals jersey?
Yeah, I think so. I think this was it. I mean, this is just very weird circumstances, Solly, how this goes down. And, he tries to come back a couple of times and can't. And, he said to me right before the trade deadline that in hindsight, maybe I came back a little early.
Mhm.
I'm going to go day to day. I'm working to try to get back. But only the line I come back to with this, because it's easy to speculate given what happened with him in the offseason and
Yeah.
him about to have free agency. Is this a business decision? What is this? Only Trey knows. Only Trey really knows if he could have come back. They obviously left the door open. They didn't put him on IR.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
left the door open with the fact that we can get something from Trey potentially. We're not going to put him on IR. Let's leave that open for him to come and be able to maybe fight through whatever this is if he can, in a sub package, in a smaller role, third downs, whatever. Leave that door open. And how much was that worth it versus going out there and playing at whatever percentage of his self and it not looking as good before he goes into free agency? There's an
Yeah.
allure, and he doesn't feel much loyalty to this team when you consider how the offseason went. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I think that is only Trey really knows how much he could have tried to push through and come back and tried to help a team that desperately needed a closer this year. You know, we
Yeah.
talked just earlier about can't get a stop in the fourth quarter. Well, they were playing without their closer almost all year. He's as good as anybody at closing games.
Yeah.
And that was hard on defense. And him not being out there hurt the entire thing. Could not have gone worse from day one of the offseason to now for how this worked out for the Bengals and for Trey. And he opts to have surgery now. And I think everybody's going to be done with it, and he'll go into free agency and hope to, get his money. It's a shame because the team really could have used Trey this year, and this injury, kept him from being able to go out there and help him.
I think people are going to speculate. Look, is he, could he play? Should he have the surgery? I will just say this. No one has surgery on an injury that's not there. Okay?
Yeah.
So you're like, if he's having surgery, the injury's real. Let's just go ahead. Let's just go ahead and just count that one, because that's a fact. That's something we do know and something we don't have to speculate. Should he wait or not? I think you and I both know there's enough there that led to the acrimony that maybe suggests that maybe he should take care of his long-term health and get ready for the inevitable market opportunities that are going to come about, particularly when it doesn't look like the team is going to the playoffs. And you notice the announcement came after a Buffalo Bills loss. So I think he was holding out hope of coming back, knowing that he was going to have surgery. But the fact that he's having surgery, Paul, tell us that the injury is real.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever a thing that it wasn't real. I think it was about that gray area that as a player.
That's right.
Everybody's playing through something. It's how much can you tolerate? How much is worth it? How much pain tolerance do you have? And is it worth it to you to go out there and what percentage are you at to be better than the other guy that could come in your place? And that's probably where both sides land on different sides of the argument here in terms of where that is. And I keep saying it, only Trey knows what that really felt like and what he could have actually been able to give if he was out there.
I wish it would have ended better, certainly for him and for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the lesson is these off seasons between team and player has to be still used. It has to be used to build good team camaraderie. It's got to be used to build togetherness. And the real good organizations in the league that are successful in those areas are going to be successful on the football field. You cannot win games when you don't have good team chemistry between the organization, coaching staff, and players. It is a necessity. Paul, you're the best, my friend.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Let you get in.
Stop asking hostages to go give themselves up for you.
That's right.
Like you are. It is. It's right. You're holding guys. You're not rewarding them earlier. You're not saying you're our guy. We believe in you for the long term. Yeah. This is us and you are in this together. You're instead saying, no, go out there and play for one more year. This has been the case with all of these guys that they've fought with over the course of the offseason. It doesn't ingratiate anybody to go out there to want to sell out and give everything they have for an organization that they don't feel like appreciates them. You have to have more players that are all feel like everyone around me is in this together. They do believe and care about me and my long-term health and future. There's just not enough of that when you're constantly bickering and fighting over every dollar for these years at a time, which is what happened here. Either be in on somebody or be out on somebody.
That's
Just
right.
be decisive. This halfway stuff ends up causing the disaster scenario like we saw with Trey Hendrickson.
But you want volunteers, not hostages.
Not hostages. A Mike Tomlin special right there. He's right on that one. He's right on that one.
They're going to opt out the moment they get a chance, and sometimes that involves an injury, right? And so you just got to make sure that those players are all in. And those things are very important for organizations to recognize and to understand. Paul Dehner Jr., you are the best, my friend. Thank you for joining us here on the Bleav in Bengal podcast presented by FanDuel. Everyone, we want to thank you for joining us as well. We'll see you next time.